Welcome to my video for my Suzuki GS1000 Resurrection. This machine had been sitting for several years. I'm not sure exactly how many, but when I bought it, it was outside. Shop around on Craigslist. Good deals are out there. I paid $400 for this bike. It was hideous. It was dirty. Like I say, I bought it outside in the rain, but it's shaping up pretty decent. This is the E model, the GS1000 E, which means mainly I think it was a little fancier. It had a fatter rear tire, has a 130/17 instead of normally what you'd have. You could barely squeak a 120 in there. Anyway, yeah, it was pretty ugly. It had a big windjammer type fairing on it and some kind of hideous bags. Fortunately, as I've seen before, because I've done a few of these resurrections, this wire was good with its stock plug untampered with. So if you have one that's been cut and spliced here, you're going to have to get a wiring diagram to do a little more work because all the connections take place behind the headlight shell. Of course, the headlight shell was gone. I sourced that from eBay, and I sourced this ring from eBay, and they were pretty reasonable. This one's bent a little bit, but not too bad. It had the heinous king and queen seat. It had the stock handlebars, and I put K&N Superbike bars on it because I need to run that low of a bar in order to fit the fairing that I intend to mount on here. I sourced this seat. This seat is from Seats Direct, and I think I found them on eBay also, right, on the internet, whatever. It's okay. It's pretty decent. You can see it's a little tight in here. It's trying to wrinkle right here a little bit, but I think it's only been on there for a week or so. I think once I start riding it and it sits out in the sun, it'll calm down. Little wrinkle right there. But this seat was actually made in, let me grab the keys. This seat was actually made in Vietnam. And the guy was pretty decent to deal with. There's a bar that goes across here. He actually included the bar. I asked him to not mount it. I didn't want the perforations in the seat. I think it just makes kind of a cleaner look. So this thing was made in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. And it's actually hand hammered from steel. It looks like it was made in a grass hut or something. But you know what? It fits. And they also included this trim piece. So a lot of times you'll be missing this trim piece. It's made out of steel, hand hammered steel, but it's okay. It's okay. It wasn't cheap. It was like $300, and it took 2 months to get it because it came from Vietnam. It's a little long in front, and that's why it bunches right here. It's a little long, but I don't know. I had to mess with the seat latch a little bit. I had to build a spacer plate. And I had to trim in here, and I reinforced it with weld around here because it was just tack welded in this area. Anyway, shuts now. So, I don't know, $300. I got a decent seat for it. Maybe at some point it's pretty flat. Maybe I'll cut it down. Okay, so moving on. This was a Resurrection. I bought it as a non-running motorcycle. I'll try to keep to the tech part of this. I'll try to steer it towards people that really know what they're doing and beginners. Came with the yellow plug wires, has XL coils. It's not really my thing. Okay, first of all, it's a Resurrection is all about the carburetors. It's all about the carburetors. So these are if you have a 78 or 79 GS1000, you'll have this carburetor, which is the Mikuni VM26. It's a mechanically actuated slide carburetor, as opposed to a 1980 GS1000, which has a constant velocity carburetor, way harder to tune. So fortunately, this bike has the mechanical slide carbs. So the first thing you do is the bike isn't going to run right. If it runs right, it won't idle right. Or if it runs at all, it won't idle right. It's just going to be ugly. So you have to take those off. And this one, as you can see, has pod filters on it. The air box was removed. So that makes it way easier to get the carbs off. You take the tank, the cables, and disconnect, take these off, disconnect the boots. You know how to do it. Then you turn them upside down, take the float bowls off, and you should take the air screw out and the fuel screw, which is center mass underneath facing up on the bottom of the carburetor. So you take that out, and when you do, keep in mind that there's generally a tiny spring, a tiny O-ring, and a tiny washer underneath there that needs to be retained when you remove these two jets, these two metering screws. So this is a little bit different carburetor in the fact that it does have a fuel screw right here and a pilot screw or an air screw here. So it has a fuel and an air screw. And all the research I've done so far suggests that the fuel screw is directly associated with the pilot circuit. So anyway, let's get back to the cleaning. You have to take these completely apart. You don't have to take the slide out, but you have to remove the pilot jet and the main jet in here, the air screw, the fuel screw, and then you have to blow out all passages with compressed air, and I recommend Berryman spray carb cleaner. That's the brand I use. Whatever carb cleaner you like, though. So once you've done that, and you've removed all the jets and all the metering screws and blown out all the passages, then I recommend, even if you have a stock bike, even if you have a stock air box and stock exhaust, you may want to go to the 17.5 pilot. The standard is a 15, and that's gonna make your bike warm up way quicker, way easier starting when it's cold. It's just going to be a richer condition, and then you adjust these accordingly. So, as I said earlier, the fuel screw is directly related to the pilot circuit, which is controlled by the throttle at idle and up to 1/8 of throttle opening. So it's hard to get information on the stock setting for this, but it appears that it's 3/4 of a turn out. I have these set at 2 turns out with a 17.5 pilot jet, and it seems okay. My air screw, I have these at 2 turns out also. Basically, there's other videos on how to set your pilot screw, but essentially you take a guess. So I went up one size on the pilot, and I went out on the fuel screw also. So I've got a pretty rich mixture at idle and right off idle as far as throttle opening is concerned before you come on the needle. So this, I just run the bike after I have it synchronized, or while I'm synchronizing the carburetors. And if you don't have a carb sync, it's probably okay. All that helps you with is your idle. Once you're off of idle, you'll never notice if your carb sync isn't perfect. So I generally just start with a baseline, like 1 turn out or a turn and a half out. A turn and a half out is a general baseline for all motorcycles across the board. And then I just turn out or turn in till the idle picks up. I find the spot where the idle's the best, and then they say you lean back a 1/4 turn. But I just go to where it idles the highest, and then come under here and adjust the idle down a little bit. So that's your pilot circuit. So after you've cleaned the carbs completely, and you cannot shortcut on that at all. You can't just take the float bowl off and spray carb cleaner in there. You have to remove the jets. And I recommend replacing the pilot jets, because if you get them all really clean, but one of them is at like 95% efficiency only, it's going to make your bike run crappy. Unless you're absolutely sure you can get them 100% clean, just replace them. They're about $5 a piece. And at that point, go to the 97.5 pilot, and your bike's going to run better on idle. Then the next circuit, so in order to get these jetted correctly, you really have to wrap your head around the idea that carburation metering is based on throttle position. It has nothing to do with RPM. It has nothing to do with what gear you're in or how fast you're going. It's all about throttle position. There's lots of diagrams and videos as far as the overlaps of how the different circuits start coming into play as you increase throttle opening. But you have to wrap your head around that. So from 0 to 1/8, you're on your pilot, you're on your idle circuit and your pilot. Then after that, you're on your needle, which is at the end of the bottom of the slide. Your needle, the standard position for this bike is clip position 3, which is in the center of 5, counted down from the top. This thing seems a little rich, and admittedly, I'm lazy. I haven't checked the needle position. I would suspect it's 1 clip richer, because the bike is a little rich in the mid, but man, the response is excellent. I'm probably going to leave it alone. I think if I went leaner, it'd be too lean. So clip position unknown on this. I think I'm on the 4th clip position, which would be raised 1, but unsure. Stock is 3rd, right in the center of 5. And then the main, here's where it's tricky. So, like I say, if you have constant velocity carbs, I don't know. But if you have the VM26 mechanical slide carb, I know this, that standard jetting on the main, that's wide open throttle. That's 3/4 and above throttle. The main, the standard main is 95. And so when I got the bike, it had stock exhaust, but it had the pod filters. It had a 105 in it. So I wrote it, and I remember there was something wrong. It sat for a couple of years before I worked on it again. But there was something wrong, so I ordered a 97.5, one up from stock. Well, it wouldn't even run with that. So I went back to 100. Once I put an exhaust pipe on it, it wouldn't even run with this on the main. I mean, it ran great on the stand, but on the main, not at all at wide open throttle. I went to 105, still wouldn't run. It was a little less though. It was trying, but it wouldn't even pull on the main. It was burbled out. Went to 125. Now it runs on the main, but it acts like it's lean. And I had real light plug color, chalk white plug, grayish chalk white. Now I'm at 130. Still, a light gray. A light gray. You're looking for on plug color, you're looking for a lightly toasted marshmallow. Just a light gold color. And we'll discuss that further. The next thing I'm going to do is go to 135 on the main, and I'm going to throw some fresh plugs in it, and we're going to go down and do some plug chops, and I'll make a video of that. So, yeah, the seat was good. So there you are on jetting. There you are on jetting. That's where I'm at right now. I'm at 2 turns out fuel screw, 2 turns out pilot. I suspect 1 clip position up on the needle, and I'm at 130 main, and it's still a spot lean on top. These filters, when you take them off and blow through them, there's just zero resistance. So this is wide open. The exhaust, they claim, the Delkevic exhaust, they claim that you set it up for stock, no jetting changes required, but they can, but I took the stock baffle out, which is just a little louder than stock and sounds really, really nice. And I went to this size, which is about 1 3/4 ID. And when you shine a flashlight down there, it's straight through. It's basically a straight pipe. And you can also run this open megaphone. You can take the core out also, run it open megaphone. But it sounds pretty nice right now. But this is the Delkevic pipe, all stainless steel. This system has about 2 hours on it, maybe. And it just has a nice gold color to it. But I highly recommend this. I found this on eBay also, and I think it was only like $300. And it was, gosh, they got it to me quick. And it came with everything I needed, all new exhaust gaskets, the spring, even a high temp sealer. Nice system, made in the UK, like $300. Best deal. And the fit was good. I had to roll the collector a little bit in order to get it to suck up against the mount here, but I don't know, mounts right up, tucks in pretty nice. I mean, it sticks out. It could tuck in another 3/4 of an inch further, but I don't know, that isn't bad. So, okay, yeah, UK all stainless Delkevic is what it's called. Good pipe. Make sure if you buy a pipe, if you always put anti-seize on these, always put anti-seize on the threads of your spark plug. You need, on the carburation, you need jets. These are the tools I use to take the float bowls off, and I do that and there's just a quick overview of some of the tools and chemicals that a beginner may need to get if you're going to try to bring one of these back to life. Okay, back to the motorcycle. Okay, what else? Okay, you've got the pipe, you've got the jetting, we've got the seat, the clutch. The bike, you couldn't find neutral on it. And had a lot of clutch drag when you'd come to a stop. And I had the clutch adjusted to 0 free play. That indicates that you have warped metal plates. And so I ordered another clutch, and one of the cheapest ones I found was, I don't know, I probably sourced it like on eBay or something. But it seems okay. It's hooked up, and it's one extra metal plate, one extra fiber plate, and new heavy-duty springs. Another thing you do when you resurrect one of these, so it has super stiff clutch pull right now. Super stiff. And one of the things you do is I have one of those cable lubers. Take your cable off, lube it till it fires WD-40 out the bottom. Do the same thing with your throttle. Do everything you can to make all your controls right, all your ergonomics right. Get your levers right, face down just right, get your mirror set just right. You know, you make sure your turn signals aren't droopy. You know, that's just make it into a decent bike, you know. I mean, for what it is, this thing has a lot of patina, but it's okay. I have another fender being painted. This one was all rusted out. Have another fender being painted it's a plastic one. It's a little bit smaller. It's from a GS650. So it's still to fit a 19-inch, but it's lighter, smaller, plastic, painted black. Bolts right up, by the way. What else? Shocks. I have two GS1000s. There's another one out back, a standard model, and it had these progressive suspension shocks on it. This one had progressive suspension but they were air shocks, like a Monroe air shock. They were hideous. So I put these on, they're super stiff. And then the front end is super stiff because it had a windjammer fairing, and the guy, he put heavy duty fork springs in it. So this bike is pretty compliant. Okay, what else? Brakes. The brakes weren't too bad. They didn't really stick, so it wasn't to where I felt that I needed to take the calipers apart. If you do have brakes that stick, and generally the rear is the worst, I don't know why, but what you have to do is you have to push the pistons out, remove the O-rings or the seals, clean all that out, clean all the white fuzz out, clean it all up with steel wool or Scotch-Brite with soap and water. It's water soluble. Put it all back together with .3 brake fluid, and it should be good. You shouldn't need to buy new seals as long as it doesn't leak. If it doesn't leak, you're fine. If it drips, you get an occasional drip, you're going to need to take it back apart and put new seals in. But it's easy because you've already done all the cleaning as far as the O-ring groove, the bore, and the pistons. So pretty easy. If you have, same thing with your master cylinder, sometimes the master cylinder will be stuck. You'll think you have pedal, but actually you don't, because all you have is the spring. What's going on is the piston is, when there's so much junk in there that when you push the piston up, it's stuck, depressed, and it's stuck in there. And you'll find that when you take it apart, it'll seem like, well, my pedal returns, but the problem is that all you're feeling is the spring. So you have to take that apart. Now, how do you get the piston out? Okay, here's the trick. Whichever master cylinder's stuck, whether it's this one rear or this one front, what you have to do, or here's how I do it, you remove it from the bike. You have to take the remote, you have to plug the orifice for the remote reservoir. That has to be plugged off. And then you hook the hose to it. You hook the brake line to it off of another master cylinder. So you would like disconnect it here and hook this backwards to your other master cylinder, and you pump it until it pushes the piston out. But again, you have to block the passage for the remote reservoir that just pushes the fluid out. You have to make a blanking plate or something. And then you just, same thing, you take it apart, clean up or replace the seals, wash it, clean it all up with soap and water, reassemble and bleed. What else? I think we're about there. Clutch, brakes, carburation. Yeah, I need tires. It's got junk tires on it, but I don't know, they hold air, kinda. This one's a slow leaker. So here's the fairing I'm gonna put on it. It's a Brealey Smith. It's kind of like a big Z1R fairing. It's not really like a GS1000 fairing, but it's a British made. It's a British made deal, made in England. Came with my 79 Triumph 750 Bonneville, but should be kind of cool. Anyway, that's it. I'll come back, join me again. I'm gonna do a video with a plug chop where I go down and test spark plug color. Try to get the jetting spot on. Again, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going 135 for the main, and we'll see how that goes. 135 with basically open header. Open header and very, very lightly, not restricted, completely unrestricted pods. Let's drop this thing down and pop it off so you can see what we're all about. I already popped it off this morning, so it's kind of warm. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. No, I know I can't. You got to pull the clutch. Stand by. I don't know, she sounds pretty good. So yeah, if it's cold or your sink's way off or your carburetion's way off, you're going to get a lot of clutch chatter, a lot of transmission chatter in here. Don't worry about that. That'll go away when you've got your carburation sorted. So this thing, it's pretty close. It's pretty close. 97.5 Pilot, third clip position, I think, and probably a 135 main. We'll get back to that. But yeah, it's runs pretty good, man. Runs pretty good. All right, thanks for watching.